Hey, welcome back to my channel. Funnily enough, this is like my third time recording this video because I keep forgetting to press record on my camera. Anyways, it's been a while since I last uploaded because I felt like my weekly vlogs were getting a bit repetitive and boring. So today I kind of bring something completely different to you guys, and I want to talk about books. So this is a list of books that I read in 2021, and I kind of want to go through it with you guys and talk to you guys about it in hopes to inspire potentially some of you guys to get back into reading, because prior to 2020, I think the last time I read a book was maybe in like 6th grade. So yeah, I would really recommend sticking through this video and hopefully get a nice book suggestion. So to start us off, we have Confessions of a Mask by Yukiya Mishima. It's the book all the way at the bottom. So I'm a straight man from America, pretty nice. And Yukiya Mishima is a gay guy from Japan from like the 40s. So our experiences are incredibly different, and I thought that reading an experience that's so different from mine would be really interesting because it would help me be a bit more empathic, I guess, and understand, the LGBT struggles and identity a bit more. And I feel like this book did a good job of conveying that. Some of the prose were a little bit old because, the book's old, so it's a bit confusing sometimes to get through. It's not as fluid as I would like to read, but that's just because the book's a little bit older. I think that Mishima's masculinity and his gayness come together in a very interesting way, I guess, to help define his sexuality in a way that is uniquely his own. And I think that to us outsiders, it'll be weird. Even if you're an LGBT ally, I feel like you might find some of the stuff in this book really weird and potentially disturbing. But I think that, hats off to him for being honest, one, and for two, I guess, putting in the work to finding himself. And I think this book has a really positive message because it kind of just shows, the path to understanding yourself is never going to be a straight road. It's going to be a lot of wandering and figuring out and denial, and then kind of finally accepting and being happy with who you are. Next, we have No Longer Human by Osama Dazai. This book blew up on TikTok either this year or the year before, so I just bought it, and I just gave it an honest read. And I think this book is really important because of the ways it talks about depression and isolation. I think these emotions and experiences are integral to the human experience, and I feel like Osama Dazai finds a really eloquent way at putting these intricate and nuanced emotions into words that we can understand and identify with. And I think our ability as readers and as its audience to, still 60 probably years after it came out, still identify and understand what the character is going through is important. And I think it makes us feel more united as a human race. So this book is definitely worth a read. There is a couple times where there are dark subjects talked about, and so if you don't like reading about things like sexual assault, I would stay clear away from this book because I think there may be 1 or 2 instances where that comes up. Next, we have the book of Laughter and Forgetting by European author Milan Kundera. This book is awesome. It is a collection of short stories that are kind of tied together through the thread of romance. And I find this book to be incredibly interesting because I feel like it provides a roadmap of things to do and not do while trying to be in a mature adult relationship with your partner. And I feel like it does a really good job at analyzing these micro expressions and reactions and thoughts that we have, and I guess putting a word to them and emotion behind them, and I guess analyzing them under a microscope so that we can we can adopt that ability, I guess, in our daily lives and use it to kind of better navigate our interpersonal relationships. And I think that it's very important that people around the age of 20 like me read this book because I think it helps you figure out a lot of your emotions that you might not even understand or realize are there, especially in the context of a romantic relationship. So I would highly recommend this book to anybody. Next, we have 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami. If you know anything about Murakami, you know his books are insane, and this is the most insane. There are 2 main characters, a man who is around 30 years old, and he is a math teacher at a local cram school, and then there is a female main character who is a hitman, I guess. She kills men who abuse women. Watching their stories, I guess, come together is a very interesting process because there's this godlike force that no one in the book understands outside of one character who is a super young teenage girl. And she is able to understand and perceive these creatures that are kind of pushing and pulling our two main characters together while like manipulating like the world around them. And it's like a very interesting read because it's like super like fantastical and magical, even though it's like kind of not at the same time. Like most of the book feels pretty grounded in a relatively stable reality with like no magic or anything, but then it'll just flare up and there'll be moments where just like weird stuff happens and you're just like, how does this connect to anything? And this book is, it's super long. You spend most of the book honestly psychoanalyzing the characters. Around like 400 pages in, I kind of realized that, and I was like, oh, this kind of sucks. But at the same time, I really enjoy slow books and movies because it gives me time to conceptualize and understand the characters and their motives and their motivations. Like after those 400 pages I was talking about, I was able to predict like exactly like how these characters think, like some of the things they're going to do, because I just felt like I could identify so deeply with them and understand what they're thinking, what they're going through, and who they are as like humans. Like the characters feel more real than your friends in real life, your family, anything. Like it's pretty insane how like deep into their mind you get. So I would highly recommend reading it for the character's sake. And this book is very much more about the journey than the ending, because the ending of this book, I'll be honest with you, is not that satisfying, and a lot of people online complain about that. Personally, I liked it, but I can see how people find it not satisfying. If you don't like really windy, slow, character-driven novels, I would not recommend this to you, but I loved it. It was insane, and I think it might take like one or two Murakami books to get to a place where this is something you actively want to read. But if you want to read this, but you're not sure if you can start it yet, I would recommend reading Kafka on the Shore and then this, because if you like Kafka on the Shore, you'll probably like this book. Next, we have An Artist of the Floating World by Cosbo Ishiguro. This book was good. It's definitely a good book, but I was not really in the right headspace to properly enjoy or understand this book. I read it right after A Year of Laughter and Forgetting, and that book isn't really subtle. It's very like upfront and brash, and like this is, it's in your face. And this book is very, 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 very subtle. So if you don't have like a good grasp or understanding or knack for like picking up on subtle literary techniques, this book might not be for you, but I would still recommend reading it because it's about a Japanese artist who made propaganda in World War II and him coming to terms with the effects of his artwork, I guess, after the war is over. And, it's nice. It's a cool story. The settings and characters are really interesting, but it's like a super, super rambly. Like it jumps across time periods and like days and like nothing. Like you're supposed to keep going and going and going. It's literally like a flow of consciousness. It's like a journal. It's like a 200 page long journal entry, but it was a really interesting read regardless, and I would still recommend it to most people if you kind of want to just take it slow and read through the book and understand the themes, because if you're being super slow with it, I think the book will kind of reward you for that, and it'll definitely be a lot better of an experience than the one I had with it. Last but not least, we have Dune. There's not really much to say other than I saw the movie. The movie was insane. It blew my mind. It looked amazing, sounded amazing. The story was cool, so I just bought the book and I jumped into it. I love it. The story is super slow. The characters are cool and realistic, but also two-dimensional. But it's nice that they're two-dimensional in a way because it gives you more mental space, I guess, to conceptualize some of the more insane sci-fi aspects and appreciate how deep the world building is. And I think it's a really awesome book for that. Like, this is the most in-depth world building I've read in a book ever in my entire life. Like, it makes me so mad that I grew up reading Hunger Games and stuff like that, because Hunger Games and like Divergence like pales in comparison to this. Like the lore behind those books are terrible compared to Dune. They're just like super flimsy. If you think about it for more than 5 minutes, the whole thing collapses. But the second you read Dune, it's like, whoa, like someone like really thought about this. Like I feel like Frank Herbert spent more time making the Dune universe than even writing the book. Like there's like a 100-page dictionary in the back of the book filled with like terms and places and stuff, so you can like keep up. But I don't use it at all. I think that kind of reading, being confused, and using context clues to understand what's going on is like part of the experience. It makes me feel like I'm Paul. It puts me right there on Arrakis trying to figure out what, you know, the Kurtz Hudrotch or whatever is, or a Gom Jabber is. You're just sitting there like, what the hell is going on the whole time? And honestly, I didn't think a book about space politics would be this interesting, but at the same time, I do love Star Wars, and Star Wars is pretty much space politics, so yeah, it's definitely an awesome read that I'd recommend to anyone who likes really, really slow, windy stories. By the way, I wrote a piece about No Longer Human. If you want to check that out, the link's in the description. I wrote about it in like a blog post. I talked about my personal experience and a bit of a review of the book. And so if you enjoyed that book and want to read, you know, my interpretation of it, I would highly recommend checking it out. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching my video. I really appreciate it. I hope to put out like maybe 1 or 2 more videos before the end of winter break. But yeah, stick around because I think I've got some more content coming. Thank you. Peace.